What's up, guys? Welcome to Viking Brothers Garage. We haven't really done a video, like a tutorial or a build video of what we've done. It's because we started the channel after everything was built, which was kind of dumb on our part. But today we'll go over what we did and how we went about doing it. So first of all, we do have a parallel 4-link on the truck, and we do have some steel spacers here mocked up for airbags. We do have airbags, they're just not on, just for mock-up purposes. So when we first bought the truck, it had these massive leaf springs and the pack was huge. So you can see where they used to be mounted. And so our process was, first of all, we had to figure out what we wanted to do. So we wanted to make a smooth riding truck that we could tow and haul with. So doing a parallel 4-link was kind of ideal with the airbags, just so we have that adjustability.
And maximum control.
Yep. So the first step of the process when we got it, we kind of liked the stock ride height of the truck, being how high it was and stepping in and out of the cab. So what we did is, after we figured out what axle we wanted, we kind of came over here to the frame and we figured out where, like a reference point kind of, right? So here, this is our first marking, 32 inches. Obviously we're at 34 now, but our center line of our axle is 19.5. So if you go down, that's going to be at 33.5. So that was kind of our starting point, is, setting a point to measure to figure out the space you need between the center line of your axle and the top of your frame rail. So depending on what you're building, you need to figure out your datum point. So since the top of our frame rail here is flat, that was our datum point, right? Super easy to measure to. It's consistent, everything else. Yep, so once we figured out what height we wanted, we came over here and we measured, right? And now, this is rough measurements, obviously. We're at like 38 3/4. And then we know our frame height right here is right about 6 inches. So we know between the top of the axle and the bottom of the frame, we have about 11.5 inches. So we had to fill that space with our airbag and our mounting system. So first step was finding the correct airbag, right? We got to figure out how much travel we want, where we want to ride at it, ride height, to make sure it's in the spec of the airbag. So once that was done, you're able to make mounts that will fit on the axle to fill that space nice. We want this airbag to be running at 7 3/4.
Inflated.
Inflated, yep. That way we have about 3.5 up, 3.5 down. So once that was set, you're able to design your brackets and whatnot and figure out what space you need in order to track right with the suspension. And then from there, you're able to start making your bars. So here our bar length is 9 inches, center to center, or center line to center line. And then the ideal angle of these bars is dependent on your drive shaft length. So over here we have a carrier bearing that's going to sit in here, right up in here. So you want your bars to be kind of parallel with that. That way when this whole thing articulates, it articulates together.
Yeah, so you don't want your drive shaft to be like this with your 4-link bars. It defeats the purpose of the 4-link.
So once that was all set up, we went ahead and made some brackets, and then we made some brackets up front also.
Some really simple brackets for the axle.
Yeah, so
nothing crazy.
This is 9 inches spacing, like we said. Some people up front, they'll do a different spacing. They'll do maybe 11, or maybe they'll do 8. But since it's parallel, we did 9-inch spacing up there as well. Also, you want to mount these in double shear, and then we have these big spacers in here just for rigidity. Some people will bolt or weld this stuff to the frame. We just bolted it with 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, rather than welding.
3.
We can pop it off if we need to. Once that was all set up, we went ahead and got under here to try and figure out our track bar. Our track bar, ideally you want to make it as long as possible, just for a better ride, right? Because as this axle drops, right?
Come in front of me and do that.
So as our axle drops, you're rotating, right? So this whole axle is gonna shift this way as it drops. And as it goes up, it's gonna shift this way. The longer it is, the less shift you have on that radius. So that's why you wanna make it as long as possible. Obviously we have a space restraint, so this was kind of the ideal setup for what we had to work with. And then we got a nice axle truss here.
The track bar will do the job. We're not going to be doing major wheeling with the truck, and it'll do the job for hauling loads.
And then from there, we kind of went online to find some shocks, and we try to find, you know, again, the mid height, right? So if these airbags can go 3 inches up, 3 inches down, then you want shocks to be resting here and have the ability to go 3 inches up and 3 inches down. So we welded them right up to our gooseneck hitch with some big 3/8 tabs. Down below is 1/4 inch tabs, just for simplicity's sake. And that was pretty much it. So here's another look at the setup here. Nice and clean setup. Looks kind of cool, I think. You guys might think otherwise. By all means, we're no experts. We just like to mess around in the garage and weld and fabricate stuff. So here's the transfer case cross member. Just did some pie cuts, folded it. I think I might have a video of how we made the transmission cross member. I'll try and throw that in here as well. So one piece, I think this is 3/16 wall. And what we did here is we put a piece of 1/4 inch wall angle and welded it on as a cap, also as rigidity from when we bolted all together onto the frame. So nice mount. And then here, I bought that transfer case mount online. I can't remember where I got it, but it just welds up to our transfer case mount and then bolts onto the transfer case. So there. And then there's the transmission cross member. Nice thing about this one is that it connects our radius arm bars all in one, nice and clean. So would love to know what you guys think of this. OEM rubber isolator up there. On the other side, we do have a hanger for the exhaust when that point comes, but our front drive shaft's in the way, so we'll see how that goes. So then here's our radius arm setup. So when we first decided to do this build, we didn't really think about the front. Our main concern was the back for some reason. We thought about doing just regular leaf springs like we had, and that's why we have a passenger side axle.
We have no down lights.
So as we got into the build and as we started tearing apart those leaf springs, we kind of steered away from that and decided to go with a coilover setup. So again, just like the rear, we figured out what our truck stance wanted to be, and then we put on these shock towers and then figured out our distance between, found a shock. We're getting a 10-inch travel shock from ADS, so we'll have 6 inches of up travel and then 4 inches of down travel. So that one actually worked out really well in our favor. Because the truck's nice and level right now. Here's the underside. Nice track bar mount there. Track bar is really long on this one compared to the rear. So if I were to do this again, I would definitely get a driver side drop for the axle. It gives you a whole heck of a lot more room for mounting up that track bar mount. And then you also don't need to bend a huge radius in the track bar like we had to here. Although it did come out really, really nice. Can't really see it, but it did come out really nice. So I don't have my drag link in, but when you're setting these up, you want your drag link and track bar to be at the same angle, right? And you also want them at the same length. That way when they track, you don't get a death wobble. You also want them at the same angle and same length so you can try to minimize bump steer. I mean, there's no real way around it, but you want to minimize it. So that's why you make track bar and drag length the same length. So nice, simple, clean. I think it's clean. Again, you guys can be the judge. I don't care what you say. I think it's badass. Haters might not, but whatever. I mean, look at those welds. They're a little crusty. I didn't wire wheel them, I'm just noticing. I think I must have been in a rush. I mean, the welds are like that all the way around. No cutting corners here. Well, we were going to sandblast the axle before we painted, so I think we just left them. So, look, we got nice slots in here so you can access the bolts nice and easy. Oh, there's our... That bracket right there is for our steering box. We'll bolt up to that. Finding the right steering box. I think we went to like 5 or 6 junkyards to find a steering box, and we didn't find one. And we kept having to mock them up and then take them out and try and sell it and then find another one. So I think the one we got is actually from a Ford F100 two-wheel drive. So it is a power steering box, which is... Rear axles Dana 70, and I think we went with 455 gears. And we have a posi in the rear. I think we got to get a posi up front. Also, we have a dually rear end. And then the front, the Dana 60 has a dual rear wheel front hub. And the reason for that, if you come back here, you can see where that wheel sits in line with that door. So we're sticking out a solid, maybe 8 inches, 10 inches. And that's because if you look at the front end here, this thing is so much wider than the body. See here, this is where the body ends on that door. And then we come all the way out here. So we left the dual rear wheel hub on that front axle just so we have a positive stick out without having to run spacers or whatnot, because a single rear wheel hub would bring that wheel in a lot further. So we have a dual rear wheel hub, and we're running a single rear wheel up front with, I think it's 0 backspace. Maybe?
Yeah, it's 0. No, it's 4.5 inches backspace.
Yeah, 0 offset.
Yep, 4.5 inches backspace, 0 offset. It looks like we have a big old spacer in there, but we do not. It is just the rotor, and then it's the dually hub. So if you're familiar with dualies, they all have a big hub that sticks out like that. But we didn't want dually wheels that caved in and kind of tucked up under those fenders like we just showed you in that clip.
Yeah, so the fender comes out here flush, and then it wraps way around. So this wheel is actually going to be poking out only about 1 inch.
The bumper line is a good line because that's where
it still comes in.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
the fender kind of lines up with that.
hopefully this looks all right with the brake calipers. I know it kind of looks weird, but it's better for the mounting this way rather than running spacers and whatnot. Give us a comment. Let's see what you guys think. Some feedback would be awesome. I don't care if it's negative or positive. You can say what you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Like and subscribe, and we got some t-shirts on the way I think we're gonna make. We got a good friend, Gary Mazar, who is an old hot rod rat fin guy. So he made us some badass artwork, and we're gonna start putting them up.